Step into the world of success with your brand amplified, the ultimate podcast designed to unravel the intricacies of thriving businesses. I'm your host, Annika Jackson, and I'm on a mission to uncover the stories, strategies, and secrets that have propelled entrepreneurs and business leaders to success. I love it when I get to have people on the podcast who have a variety of experience and expertise. My guest has been and is an engineer, has worked in the video game industry, created a lot of patents, 12 patents, I believe, unless that number's changed, was a consultant and product developer for Adidas. So I want to hear about how that translated with everything else you've done. Very instrumental in Oculus, which we all know and appreciate. And not only that, but you also are in the nonprofit world as a board member for Asia Society and as the McCauley Chair in Drug Policy Innovation. So Jack McCauley, innovator at residence at Jacobs Institute of Design Innovation at UC Berkeley. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Annika. I appreciate the opportunity to do that. And I will speak candidly today, as I'm known to do.
Yes, please.
All right.
Yeah, so you have, again, such a varied background, working for the Department of Defense, getting a scholarship to go to Berkeley. Berkeley is a big through line in your career and in your life. So I'd love to hear, did you always know that you were going to be an engineer and that you were going to live in that world?
Yeah. So back to your first statement there about working for the Department of Defense and getting a scholarship. That's true. At the time, I applied for a scholarship and I got one at Berkeley and Stanford. And I chose Berkeley because my girlfriend lived in town. And I'm glad I did. Stanford's a great school. I just think that Berkeley afforded me the opportunity to improve myself dramatically. Because when I was a kid, I could observe things, how they worked, but I didn't really understand why they did what they did. And after the College of Engineering experience, I had a greater depth of understanding of how the world worked, the physics and so forth. So I always wondered, why do you need two wires with electricity? Because you only need one hose, right? You shoot a hose in the air, it comes down to the ground. So this is when I was a little kid. So it opened up my mind. And also the best part about it is it always taught me to tell the truth as I saw it. And to be honest, which is one of the things they teach you there. And it's a great school. And I'm still there, even 40 years henceforth. I'm fellow at the university, sometimes more than others. But so this is the thing about the education I got there. It really launched my life and availed to me things that I would not have been able to achieve if I had not that education.
Real.
The other thing, let me just give you a quick story. One of the guys was the head of the computer science department at UC Berkeley, had a startup company, right? And everything this guy touched turned to gold. I mean, literally. He's a genius, a real one, not just, he's a genius. They say that, right? No, this is a real one. And he hired me to work saw something, I guess, and hired me to work at Cyclotomics, which is Kodak Research. This was in the 80s. And so in the process of doing that, I got to work on feature films. I worked on Dick Tracy, and Edward Scissorhands, Terminator 2, and probably about 4 other films that we worked on. So that's the part about being connected. And I stayed in touch with that guy for 40 years. He just died. He died in 2019, passed away. He was a great guy, not the easiest guy to work for, very demanding person, he did not understand when you didn't understand what he understood. Drove them crazy. Can't you see it? It's so simple. And other people in my life, a guy at Oculus, Ronan Uribe, another great guy, very smart guy, and he availed me a job. And I got that job through a job place. I worked at Activision. I got a job at Oculus because Activision recommended me. I never had a resume. More it isn't. Just got referred. So yeah, that's the beauty of the chain of events that led to me to where I am, or due to my high level of education, and also the discipline that taught me. I was undisciplined totally. When I was 18, I was talking to my mom about this. I was a College of Engineering commencement speaker in 2019. I was talking to my mom, and And she goes, you never did your schoolwork ever. And she goes, how did you do? And I had to get caught up. So I really did work, had to work hard because I was behind. So I just didn't do the work. I wouldn't do my reading or anything like that. I just refused to do it. I did art, like the stuff that I talked about with you earlier, the little stuff on your wall there. I like art and things like that and creative stuff. So, the education was very important. I highly recommend it. And the discipline that it takes to get an engineering degree is worthwhile. It teaches you to work. That's what you learn there mostly, is how to work.
Yeah.
So I teach at UC Berkeley. I work at environmental engineering with Scott Moore, Professor Moore. And we teach vehicle engineering, like electric vehicle, the nuts and bolts, the physics of how the motors work and things like that. And the benefits of EVs and other forms of green energy. So that's what I'm doing now. So, yeah. Although I'm not a greenie or environmentalist, I like that stuff anyway. I worked at U.S. Wind Power for a brief period in 89, working on inverters for their windmills, stuff like that. I just have an interest in it, but not like, global warming kind of fanaticism, but just sort of interested in it. So that's what I teach there. So, yeah.
Well, I feel like the people who are most scientific and have that engineering brain and want to take things apart and learn about things are also the people who are really good at the creative arts, at painting or at appreciating art. I see that in my daughter. She wants to be a neuroscientist, a researcher, not a surgeon and not a marketer, right? But she also loves to do art on the side. And I love listening to her and how her brain works. And it's the same thing I'm seeing from you, is that you have always had this inquisitive nature, it sounds like, where you want to understand the inner workings of everything. And you then can take that, understand how to create use cases or how to design products that other people will appreciate and be able to use more efficiently or more effectively than perhaps somebody else would have designed them.
I think one of the mistakes that the schools in California made was, so I'll just give you a background. I took music all up from third grade all the way until I was a senior in high school. Every year I had a day of music. I love that stuff. I love music and art. I was in art class. That's where my head was at, not in history and, whatever, philosophy. I like math. I could do the math, but I just was not into it. And I get that you get a feeling inside of yourself when you create something. And that was replicated throughout my career. Like when I saw something going well, that rush you get, and you're like, oh, this is good. And I thrive on. I still do. And so, you're right, though. I think that those kinds of things are just as important as calculus and algebra 1, 2, and trig. They're just as important. And that's where you find out not everyone that goes to art class is going to be an artist, right? But right. You find out whether or not you have the intuition to do it. So, yeah.
And you went from engineering, right, working at Microsoft and other companies, into the video game world as a researcher, as a consultant. Then you moved into the shoe world, shoe development with Adidas. What was that like, and why that transition?
Yeah. So I worked at sports stuff when I left Activision. I endeavored into electronically augmented athletic things, right? So I'll give you a couple examples. We had a X2 Impact. We had a concussion detector so that pro players, when they received a concussion jolt to their head and it had to be in a particular orientation, it would signal to the trainer or the coach online that the person's taking a hit.
Wow.
So the trainer would approach the guy and say, you okay? Can you still play? And these guys, even if they don't remember the conversation, they're still going to play no matter what. They hated it. The players hated that thing. We were just getting it debugged, right? And it was in the Seattle Seahawks. This is up in the Northwest in Seattle. Mm-hmm. So that was one, and that company went out of business because the players don't want to be told, if they get injured, like they get knocked around, they don't say anything. They take it. Now, that's because they want to play. That's the whole thing. And so that I went and I got contacted. Adidas is up in the Pacific Northwest too. I got contacted with Adidas, and this was a soccer ball, not shoes. And what it did, it recorded the spin and trajectory of the ball with an instrumentation beside the ball.
Oh, wow.
So my job there and this was in 2011, was do all the electronics and the radio and so forth like that. What happened with that project is I got injured on a hike. I had to quit. I broke my leg. I couldn't work.
Oh my gosh.
Then I was into augmented swimming stuff, like instrumentation on your head. In this case, it was an MP3 player. You could listen to music with phone connecting headphones while you swim. And that did okay. And the next one was not really athletic stuff, but these moldable headphones. You put them in your ear and they expand in your ear. You know those things that musicians wear on their ears like that, or headphones. But it was a kit you put in there, you could make your own. So, and that company went out of business. And then I was at Skull Candy. I think they're still around.
Oh, yeah.
And about 4 other companies. So every time I went out of the realm of video games, I failed. I had 2 camera companies, Lucid Cam and Ampio. Ampio had an accessory for the GoPro camera that allowed you to turn the camera on and off with a button on your hand. Like in the GoPro, you have to reach on top and push on a button. That'll start a stop button. This, you just pushed here and it started the camera. So if you're doing your sport, and due to bad business decisions, that probably are my fault, but that thing, we canned that just as Oculus came into the picture. We were shutting that company down. And both me and my partner realized at the time that we were going to have struggle financially with this, and we didn't want to put a huge investment into it because our sales potential was pretty good. It's 350,000 piece starting order, something like that. That's what we were doing. And the revenue, the amount of money it took to do that, neither one of us wanted to risk it. It's a lot of money. It's $10 million or something. It's like, is this worth it? This is our only product. We have nothing else in the company but this. And who's going to buy us? We were looking like GoPro's going to buy us out, right? GoPro didn't buy us out. So that went out of business. Then comes Oculus, right? And Oculus, a success as far as being able to sell the business to Facebook. It was successful. And I think now that they struggle with the virtual reality stuff a little bit, the sales and stuff aren't. It's been 10 years since Oculus started, and they've sold 10 million headsets. And Sony has sold 400 million PlayStations. So that's where you want to be. That's where you want to be. The content is important, the important part of that. So you did mention Microsoft, but I was working at Microsoft in the 80s and 90s on drivers with another company. It's a long story, and I worked in their Xbox third-party group. That's where I worked, built controllers and stuff for Microsoft. Yeah. So I was in video game stuff. Wow. So that's what I'm trying to say is that, I have successes, but I've done 500 things.
But that's
sometimes I'll start something and I'll abandon it. Like I don't see that I'm going anywhere. I lose interest, whatever. I'm still working on it.
Yeah, but that's part of also entrepreneurship and innovation and being a creator and inventor is you're ideating, iterating, you're creating. Not everything's going to work out, but had several things that have been successes. Anybody who plays Guitar Hero, right? You were instrumental in that.
Yeah, what happened there with Guitar Hero, this is how this went down. A guy I worked with at Take-Two Interactive, Take-Two is a video game publisher, Grand Theft Auto and stuff like that. I work with a guy who runs our hardware division, right? I still talk to him to this day. It's been 25 years or something. He calls me up and he goes, hey, Kelly, this guy named Kelly Summer, he goes, Kelly's wants to show you something at CES. This is in 2005, January 2005. I go to CES. And I go into this room, and there's these 2 Taiwanese guys in there, brothers, and they have this guitar game. I was like, I thought it was dumb. Terribly wrong. And what I did was with that is that we were a startup company, and my salary is very low, probably on the order of 60,000. So I think that's about where I was because we don't have the cash, right? So you're going to take stock, get the stock, right? So I have to make ends meet. So I did a deal with Microchip, who's a semiconductor provider, where I got an implied license into each chip sold, right? So we had this deal where every chip I sold, I get a certain percentage. No matter what, it's the same percentage, right? And the Guitar Hero comes with 64 million pieces. So the checks that I got from that were huge. They got Activision's attention for sure, but it had no impact on their bottom line, nothing. It didn't affect them. It affected Microchip, not them. And so that was a nice break. It was nice because I was set up in a nice office over in a really plush part of town, and we had an admin and secretary though. So it was really a big deal. And so because of Guitar Hero, I got Oculus because they knew about me at that point. My job there was not creating all the guitars. My job there was primarily the drums and running the engineering component of that. And so that's what I was doing there. So sorry about the dog. So, hey, can you go give him that? Thank you. So anyways, we ended up, doing really well. A spectacular hit. Who would know this? You don't know that. I mean, you can say what you want about it, but no one knew that was going to happen. And it was just a really popular game and fun. So I was born. But it was everywhere on media and TV, and like Oculus to a little bit degree, that stuff was everywhere. It was on Jimmy Kimmel, late night TV. It was in print media and everywhere. And that's largely due to the spin that my boss, Brennan, into the company. He was very, very good at that, marketing and spin. He knows people, right? Connected with people. So he can get into a demo. That's what he did with me. He showed up at I had an R&D facility. It's gone now, but he showed up there and he has this thing in his hand, and I look at it, and it looked like a ski mask or something. I go, oh, no, here we go. Well, that I like the guy. That's why I joined. I just like him. If I like someone, I'm good. I know it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
If I like him. If I don't like him, maybe I don't do that, So.
Well, it sounds like even though you say that you had these different failures, if you went out of the video game realm, right?
Yep.
You still had the reputation, and people still knew that you were innovative, creative, that you'd be able to problem solve and figure things out, and that you were a go-to person.
Yeah. Those are just like sort of natural gifts, I guess, in a way. And my childhood, with the stuff I was doing, Lego and all kinds of stuff like that. I love that stuff, building models and airplanes and model airplanes and stuff like that. I just like doing it. And so, yeah, I think I understand your question. It's just had to do with what I got, the opportunities I had as a kid and my parents furnishing me with the necessary stuff to do that, telling me to go to do my schoolwork, but at the same time giving me trumpets and musical instruments, crayons and paint and all that stuff at the same time. Like, we really like you to go to school, but you're good at this. So why don't you do this? Message. I couldn't understand what they're doing that for. So, yeah.
Well, and now you're an innovator in residence. We were talking about the building that's in your background. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'd love to hear that transition and what does it mean to be an innovator in residence?
Yeah. Well, so here's how it went down. Jacobs Institute was already underway when I headed back to the university. I started getting speaking engagements and meeting people there, various academic people, professors, and I started to meet those. So in the process of doing this, I was approached by Shankar Satri, the Dean of Engineering, about donating money, this was post-Oculus, to build a facility on campus, which was kind of underway, and it was underway anyways, donating money on that to buy equipment and so forth. And so I did that. And so we gave them a lot of money. It was a lot. And I think Paul Jacobs was the largest benefactor, but maybe I'm number two. Well, and the reason I did that is because I know that you learn things by getting your hands on them. Visual and touching and feeling things, a very quick way to learn. That's why YouTube's such a popular way to learn things. It is. It's very fast. It's not a textbook anymore. You have someone explaining it to you, and you can replay it. And if you don't understand it, you can play it back. So I think that's a very effective way to learn. And the retention on it's very high too. So that's why I did it. And it's a very successful program on campus. Don't quote me on this exactly, but I think we have 1,200 or 1,300 grad students, and the rest undergrad. I don't know what the numbers are right now, but it's very popular on campus. Everyone I talk to raves about it. And that's because it's not sitting in a classroom, guy at a lectern, with chalk and equations and stuff. It's more fun, artsy stuff, So that's how I got back there. And also when I left Oculus, I reached out, MSRI, Math and Science Research Institute in Berkeley. The guy that I worked with on Terminator 2, the grouchy guy, he got me the gig there. He said, you need to come here and be a trustee. He got me that gig. Asia Society, I got that gig through somebody I know. So I get introduced to that. And then I'm working at Rand Corporation. So I did all that stuff. It's a bit much for me now to do that. And this is, a period of 8 years. the program at MSRI is a great place. It's right near campus at Berkeley. It's roughly affiliated with the school, Postgrad Institute, famous math people that are there, and people who love math. So that's what the place is about. Nice director. She's a woman. She lives in Seattle. She's great. The people are great there. So the thing I got from Berkeley, like the staff, they're really nice. They hire good people, but they hire nice people too. Not all of them, perfect, but that's what I dug about it. So, and that's starting when I left Berkeley, I didn't want to go back there. To me, the workload was too high for me. I don't want to work that hard. I have to spend hours and hours doing problem sets. I don't like doing that. It's not for me, but I had to. And so I didn't like the workload. I swear I'd never go back there when I left there. Never coming back here ever. And lo and behold, I'm back because of the gift they gave me. So,
well, and you were talking about the Center for Design Innovation and the fact that it's not being in a classroom, just sitting, listening to a lecture, but you actually get your hands dirty, right? It gives people creative space and license to succeed, but also to fail and figure out what to do differently the next time.
Yeah. I think the success rate is pretty high there. Some of the stuff is every year they have an expo there, and some of it's a little weird, but for the most part, I'm pretty impressed by what the students have done there. So it's just different than a lecture hall, and it's a different kind of a learning space. And so that's what I saw. And I like lecture halls. They're okay. It's fine. But I learned fastest by touching and doing stuff and reading on my own. Actually, I learned quickly too, but visually. If you want to learn about AI, there's really, really good videos that explain in layman's terms the math behind it.
Oh, wow.
And I could give you a reference for that later. But I found two guys who really, really know it and really explain it well. So, and it's all visual with these animations they're doing, 3-dimensional derivatives and chain rule that you just don't understand what it looks like. They explain it with an object, finding the lowest point where the derivative is zero. It's stuff like that. And that's just, I wish I had that kind of skill to do the video stuff. I would like to do some, explanation videos, I guess. So,
yeah. Well, and I will say I was looking at your LinkedIn and saw a post that you'd shared about the DTS in Dublin, the Dublin Tech Summit, and immediately went to their website and signed up to get the videos on demand. So
that was a busy tech summit. I had one day and I had 3 talks.
Wow.
And is that true? Yeah, 3 talks in one day, and one because somebody canceled, so they threw me in there. But it was busy. It was busy, and it's a beautiful place. Dublin, Ireland is very nice. The people are nice there. So, yeah, it was good.
Yeah. So let's talk about AI. I definitely want to get into the AI conversation, and then also your work with EVs. But when did you start working in the AI world? Because I know Gen AI, of course, now that's what people are talking about. It's a couple years old, but AI has been around for a lot longer.
Yeah, it's had a couple of lives and then died, and a couple of lives and died. And so it's not dying now because the processing power of GPUs. That's the bottom line. The intensive number crunching that is involved with AI, these huge matrices. What it is linear algebra with a very large number of variables on it. And that's basically what it is, the math is. But so to give you a background, they didn't have the processing power to do that. The Intel Red 2000 supercomputer has the power of an iPhone 15 from 2000. So that's where we are today. And the Sony PS5 is more powerful, twice or 3 times as more powerful as the Intel Red 2000. Don't quote me on that, but so we have the processing power now with NVIDIA, and it's driven by computer graphics. I mean, the demand for nice graphics and stuff, that's what's driving the GPU. So the math on a GPU, the type of math on a GPU and AI on a tensor type processor is the same. So it just coincidentally worked out that way. So my background in that started in the 90s, and I heard about it. It's like a computer that can think. I know computers can't think. So how does a computer think? So I started taking classes through the extension, and I took a class in genetic algorithms, fuzzy logic, and neural nets. And to me, the one that was fascinating was fuzzy logic, because Lofty Zeta, professor at Berkeley, is the creator. that. So I was interested in that. Fuzzy logic is taking imprecise information or about that information, like information that's almost there, not quite, but sort of, and combining it and making a crisp output out of it. Like a true answer. Like you get mixed signals and you can create a true. That's what it is. And so neural nets are very different than that. And so they say it's a neural network. It's actually, it's not a neuron. It looks like one, but it's not. That's not how it works at all. It's not a neuron at all. It's a statistically biased function with yes or no answer, called sigmoid function. That's what it is. And I think there's other ones too, and you can use other functions to do that. So that's essentially what it is. The complicated part, and that's stuff is simple. I memean, to do it on paper would take you months. You can do it, That stuff that's the simple part. The complex part is about back propagation. And the complex part about that is how to explain it. And the aforementioned video is the clearest explanation I've seen of it.
Well,
and so it uses calculus, and calculus, the derivative calculus is what it uses. It's a chain rule. Basically, find n-dimensional functions slope. That's zero. And that means you have an answer, the correct answer. That's essentially what it means. So that makes sense? The actual training part and how that works is kind of mysterious. It's automatic, not automatic, autonomous. It kind of works on it. And that's not clear to me how that exactly. And that other people have said that too, that know more than I do. But you've seen these ghastly videos and things they've generated with photoreal monsters. It's like hellish, stylish, very weird. But it's just the beginning. So to answer your question, I took courses to the extension. I just studied on a few courses, and I took at UC Berkeley's extension. I took a course over in Menlo Park in the 90s. And so that's how I learned it. So, but did I use it? No, because I was not really doing it. I was creating plastic things with computers in them or video games. That's what I was doing. So,
where do you see AI going? Because I love the fact that you said, because nobody has ever come on my show who's been in the AI world who says, oh yeah, it's had several stops and starts, but now we have the power, we have the chips, we have the processing,
the potential for evil intents with it is great. I think creating messaging, putting this messaging out there that's not true. Well, you just propagate messages. If people do that, enough people start believing, well, it must be true. I'm hearing about it everywhere, right? It's kind of like that. I can't say exactly where it's going in terms of, certainly it's easy to cheat on paper, right? I think I've heard people complain about that. Cheat pretty easily. But I think it's hard to say where it's going. There's nefarious purposes for it too, And stuff I look at, the art for it looks evil to me. I don't want to look at that stuff. People's faces that morph into monsters, crazy. I don't like that. But
I've heard that's getting better with Midjourney's recent release. That there's it's less too many fingers on the hands and too many teeth and things like that.
Well, you can tell pretty quickly. The ones I like are the ones of cars, like the renders of cars. I can tell they're AI instantly because the background looks and so forth like that. They're really good. People maybe not as easy to tell in it, but so.
Yeah, but I have heard on the other side, the implications for factory work, not having people have to labor as hard. The way that AI is used to pick crops and to be able to identify, through computer vision, which crops are good and bad and segment them. And I've had both Manoj Agarwal and Kevin Surace have said, in 5 years, if you don't have AI integrated into your business, you won't be in business. And that they also see positive outcomes of that. There will be more time for creative pursuits and that strategy and that thinking that at least right now AI can't achieve, right?
Yeah,
so,
all those people in foreign countries they're doing support calls and stuff like that, they're going to be out of a job for sure.
Yeah,
they will. Other stuff, AI can be a plumber at your house. I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Plumbers are going to get super highly paid. Engineers, who knows what will happen in programming. I know that it can do it to a degree, but to describe what you want the program to do and have it generate the kind of when the temperature reaches 400 degrees, turn on the red light and blink it if it goes higher, and have it write the software for that. I think its potential for doing that is pretty high.
And you are working, which, like you mentioned earlier, on EVs.
Yeah.
What is the future of EVs? Because you hear so much stuff about that too. We're both in California. We know that within a certain time frame, there aren't supposed to be any new cars sold that are not EVs, but then there's talks about the infrastructure and whether people will be able to have access,
Yeah, I have two. I have a Tesla Model Y and I have a Chevy Bolt. I'm a huge fan of the EVs, but you see, I don't drive all day long. I drive to the grocery store and back home. And my battery charge lasts a week and a half.
Wow.
It's not like I have a commute. I think it's challenging when you have long commutes to justify having an EV because the range is about 300 miles on a Tesla with new batteries, right?
Right.
It's a little limiting. The nice part is you can charge it at home. You come home and you plug it in at night and it's ready to go in the morning, fully charged. There's very little or nothing service that needs to be done on it. There's no oil change. It goes through tires, but any car will do that, right? So that's the benefit. And the energy and environmental equation for that's also intriguing in that efficiency on an EV. I'll just explain it this way. If you take a unit of energy, let's call it 1,000 joules or whatever it is, right? And you put that in a gasoline car, you get 290 joules of energy out. Well, that's all you get, 29% efficient, okay? When you go up the hill and then you start going down the hill, it does your compression braking or your pushing on the brakes, which is using energy. On EV, it doesn't do that. When you go up the hill and you go back down, it charges the battery back up with the inertial energy, potential energy of the car. That's the benefit. And the efficiency is about 54% versus 29%. If you include the fact that it's natural gas being combusted at a power plant, which is at best 50% efficient, 50, 60, something like that, at a good modern power plant. So that's the benefit of it. And the concerns about batteries and pollution that's involved, they haven't really figured out a way to recycle those yet, but they will. It's like a chunk of gold sitting there that someone's going to figure it out. Not me, but some chemists will figure it out. It'll be a huge business there. So that's the benefit to me. Why not? If you can use less stuff, why not? I'm kind of there. I like efficient things, right? You have a toy with a battery and you got to make the battery last as long as you can. You're constantly tweaking the software in there to get it to last. Why can't you do that with X-Bar? So with Ford and other companies, here's what Ford told me. Okay, this will put it in a framework. There's a car called a Ford GT. It's a sports car. I love it. Supercars. I have those things. So it's a supercar. I always wanted one. They're impossible to get. They're back ordered. You have to be special to get one. I applied. I couldn't get one. So I go to Ford. I go to Auto Show in Detroit, and there's the Ford executives. So I got introduced and talking to those guys. And I go, "You guys did a great job on that Ford GT. That thing is awesome." He goes, "We didn't build that. It says Ford on it. That's not our car. They bought it." And I go, "Why did you use the building yourselves?" "We don't know how. We manufacture things. That's what we know how to do. We made airplanes in World War II by the gazillions. They made tons of airplanes. If you have something in front of them, they'll set up the production line, cast the parts, machine everything, build this equipment. That's what they do." For them to transition away from something that predominantly almost dominated for 100 years to EV is challenging to them. The bureaucracy at the company, also other reasons too, it's just hard for them to transition into that. Yeah. So that's, I think, what they're struggling with. And I think their revenue model is based on internal combustion engines. And the infrastructure from service centers and things all about getting those service dollars. Yeah. Right? It's economics too. So that was interesting here. And also Ford told me, like, if you have a car and you go to a Ford dealer, you order, I don't know, what's a Ford model? Let's say Bronco, whatever it is. You say, "I want red seats. I like those red seats. I'm going to order those red seats with my gold Bronco," right? The red seats arrive at the factory 24 hours after they're produced to be installed in your car. It's called just-in-time manufacturing. Mm-hmm. So the materials and the warehousing and the stuff doesn't exist really, except the materials on a roll, but they build it right on the spot and ship it out. So that's how they don't have like money sitting in jars waiting to be gone. It leaves the door and then they get paid. So that's the other thing that was kind of surprising to me is how they got that so dialed in that they're not holding money somewhere, like the seat freight. sitting there in a warehouse. You built it 2 months ago or something. It's not like that. They built everything right on the spot.
Amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing.
Yeah, drop ship, but for cars, for vehicles.
Yeah, I've never spoken to a car manufacturer or, they're very transparent with me. And I never talked to them before. Like I said, what he said, it was we manufacture things. That's what we do. We're a manufacturer, and we're very good at it. So, and the logistics supply chain, work by bolts and nuts and all that stuff. They know all that.
But we have these innovations, AI, electric vehicles, but there are also environmental implications in terms of power, in terms of mining, right? How do you think we can solve those issues while we keep celebrating and saying these things are going to be better, they're going to help us advance as society, they're going to be better for the environment overall?
I was surprised to learn that the cost per kilowatt of solar for a Nevada power company near Las Vegas is the same as natural gas now. So the unit cost to the producer for a watt of solar energy is the same as natural gas. Right now it is. Wasn't always that way. So it could be, and now the solar is only going to work when the sun's out, right?
Yes.
This is not going to work very well. So you still need natural gas and coal, things like that. So I think eventually there'll be a transition to solar. This house here, I'm at my house, has solar, has a large solar system with batteries, a battery backup. I've got 52 kilowatts of battery, just huge. Kilowatt hour, sorry. So I've got a huge battery system on it. If power goes out, I always have power there. Even if the neighbors don't, I have. So you can store the batteries and so forth, this stuff in the day. And when you fly into Vegas, you look out and you see these 3 towers surrounded by mirrors, way off in the distance. Off high, I think it's higher 15. And they're all focusing their light at this point on the top of the tower, heating it up to the extreme. I don't know the efficiency argument for that, but I think it's a cool vision. You look out there, it looks like 3 flying saucers out in the desert. And adjacent to that, there's a huge solar farm.
Yeah. I've driven past it many a time going to Vegas.
Yeah. You drive it. It's on the left side, right? When you're going to, yeah, I know. When the first time I saw it, I go, what is that? Is that a guard tower? No, it's not a guard tower. I couldn't see the mirrors on the ground. So that, in my mind, renewables, solar is a renewable in a way, will eventually have an edge. And let me talk to you briefly about what I learned about coal. Now, you hear about coal, how awful coal is. Here's the surprising facts about coal. This is what I thought. It's like, we can't bury coal. It's bad stuff. Actually, the problem that coal has is it's too cheap. It costs $60 a ton delivered to the power plant. It's super cheap.
Wow.
Right? This is why China burns it, because the cost, not all they have it, and the nominal cost to them is not much. Natural gas is much more expensive. It is. And the surprising thing about coal is it's actually pretty environmentally friendly if it's scrubbed, right? The amount of energy it takes to get it out of the ground, put it in a rail car, and move it is minimal. So you have an energy advantage. You take it, especially you dig it out of the ground and you throw it in a fire. That's all you do to it. It's not like natural gas has to be processed in a centrifuge, and now propane and fossil fuels and all that, much more processing and energy intensive. So coal was a surprise winner. Unfortunately, the volume per unit of energy is very large. It's big. It's a big chunk, right? That's kind of the problem. So this was my surprise in doing the work at Berkeley. Was like coal. It's like a steam locomotive. It's not all that efficient, but it's cheap to run.
Yeah.
Why hasn't? The reason was just because storing the fuel. To go to Los Angeles from New York on a steam train, you have to take another train to drop coal off in different spots to stop and refuel. That was kind of like the issue with it. And a diesel electric has similar issues to that, but the energy density is very high. The amount of energy, you don't have to start as often, and you can put it in big tanks. So this was my discovery: is coal is actually environmentally friendly. You don't hear that.
You don't hear that at all. Yeah.
No. Huh. Yeah. When you do research, you find things out. Like we researched this climate change thing, right? So I start hearing about this climate change is bad. The climate is changing. And so I go, why is that? And I heard, we got this thing called the Keeling curve. It goes like this, a hockey stick. Here's where we were in 1970, way up there. So I started looking into that. In fact, the temperature has gone up since 1970. but it's gone up before the past in the history. As a matter of fact, from 1935, which was the hottest June, and I heard it was like watching the news, hottest June ever was this June in the world. It's not true. In 1935 was much warmer globally. And then it cooled, and it cooled. I remember in Holland in the 60s, we had 3 feet of snow on the ground.
Wow.
The snow. There's no snow on the ground now, right? And then it got warm. And then by 1970, it started warming up again, and we're warming up again. So, and how is that supposed to correlate to CO2 emissions? Because CO2 emissions in 1935 were about 300 ppm, 300 parts per million. That's the amount in concentration in gas. And now it's like 380. You tell me that, well, whatever. It doesn't follow the curve. This is what our discovery is. It is getting warmer. I don't know why. Probably water vapor. Around here in this area, it's not gotten warmer. It's the same. It's pretty flat. Places like Vegas have gotten a lot warmer.
Right.
Vegas has increased population, more roads and blacktops and with black body radiators and all these other things that are around. So, yeah, I found that out. It was a surprising thing to find out. And now I'm really skeptical about when I hear that. I wish I had not done it because I would follow mine. Now I'm really skeptical about everything I hear because we actually did the work. And yeah, surprising result. I think a lot of it is like has a little bit of hysteria and possibly. I saw in KQED, we got to move the elementary schools because they're too close to the ocean, all going to flood. I mean, who writes that stuff? Stack it up. I mean, maybe it will in a couple hundred years, and I don't know. But I see this and I go, that's just. I'm not alone though. There's a lot of people. I'm not a climatologist or chemist, but there's a lot of people who are in my camp. I know them. I know who they are. I talk to them. Who think the same thing I do. They don't see it. So we actually spent a lot of time on that. I spent cybersecurity. I did that. I worked on all this stuff.
So what do you think is next for you? Is my first, I'll stop there and then I'll ask a couple more questions.
I'll tell you what we're working on right this moment is, here's a thought. In places like Mexico, you can't drink the water, the tap water. You don't drink it. You heard that. That's true. I had a bad experience with it, so I know. So how about if you could? What would it take to make it so you could drink the tap water and it was pure, like the purest of pure, right? So it'd be nice to have something in your kitchen which you didn't have to go down and run down. Mexican people buy bottled water. Some of them drink out of the tap. Most people go buy a big jug, an Oxon water, a big gallon jug of water. And wouldn't it be nice not to do that and have somebody in your kitchen would shake the tap water and make it potable and drinkable, pure. There's no bacteria in it. We found here, not to gross you out, but there's E. coli bacteria. We think it's E. coli in the water air.
Oh.
Even coming out of the reverse osmosis. I had that thing under your sink, the little tube.
Yeah.
There's buried in that. It was probably in the cartridge when they put it in.
Wow.
Yeah. So wouldn't it be nice to have no bacteria? And it's safe for your child. Like you want to feed the kid a bottle of milk, and you want to know it's clean and good. You mix the powder or whatever, however you do your milk. So, So this is what we're working on now. And it's not even my idea. It's another guy's idea, but we did the engineering, my comrade here, and I did on it. And you guys 2 days ago ran the test, and it was successful, largely successful. We had a few issues, but nothing major. And we swabbed it for bacteria. In a Petri dish, no bacteria. So got rid of the bacteria and got rid of all the minerals and salt. Everything's gone. It's pure. So that has, could have large implications. I would want that in my kitchen. Test the water. You can buy it at Amazon. Buy one of these Petri dish kits for kids, and then go swab your water and see what you find in there. You might be surprised. Yeah. Plus all the minerals and things like that. So that's what I'm working on.
Yeah. Is that something that you see as a model that you could give to foreign countries for a lesser price, right? Because we also know that there's so many inequities.
That's the biggest customer for it.
Yeah.
Countries without good potable water, they get sick from it too. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to sick. Yeah, that's the market for it. And in different sizes, you can have a very large one, a small one, or a desktop unit. You take your water bottle when you're going to go put it in your backpack, and your water bottle, stick it in there, you hit the button, and it fills it up for you.
Nice. You
don't have to go, you see people at the airport doing that too. You don't have to go fill up a tap water, or buy a bottle of water to put it in there.
Yeah.
Brita, the company Brita, they have a charcoal filters thing. But still, it's not getting rid of bacteria and viruses in it. It doesn't do that. And salt, everything is out of it, pure.
And what do you see as the next innovation in, electric vehicles, AI, all of these different things that people are really looking at right now and trying to figure out
Well, there's a vetting and a falling out process that's occurring right now with the EV companies. I know that Rivian, which is a little pickup truck, is struggling. And this was bound to happen. In the 20s and 30s, there were millions of car companies, not millions, a lot of car companies. And just about all of them died off. And the ones that were left were Ford and Pontiac and Oldsmobile and Volts. I don't know if Volkswagen was around back then. Don't quote me on that. A few of the American companies were all out. Ford in particular was doing pretty well. So this is what's happening. It's just part of the process. I think Tesla's going to be around a while. They had the best-selling sedan, I think, in 2022. That's pretty good, So to answer your question, I think that there's companies that will come and go, and they have their thing, and then they go away. And then we'll find that with the EV world too. But I don't think they're going away. I think the benefits of not having to take your car to the shop ever. My Bolt's been to the shop one time in 5 years.
Wow.
And that was to replace the battery free, new battery in it. And it's flawless. I had no problems with it. And I got into Uber, this guy, he said, Chevrolet Bolt. Hey, what do you think of your Bolt? He goes, it's the best car I've ever owned. I go, me too. I love the thing. I go everywhere in it. Not everywhere, but
yeah.
I need to drive to LA. I'm not going to take the Bolt. But I'll take Southwest or fly. I'm not going to, so, but for around town and outsing around, it's perfect vehicle for that.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Any last thoughts that you want to leave the audience with today? Things that they should think of if they are looking at innovation or just transformation?
Yeah. I can't claim that I know it's going to happen with AI, but I think there's definitely some consequential things in terms of manipulating people. And you kind of see a lot of that now. They put a message out, increasing people's heart. It could be consequential, but I think the architecture and car design stuff is really cool. The journey stuff is good for that, but it remains to be seen. I hate to try to predict that and be wrong. We're supposed to be in flying cars right now. We're not in flying cars.
Yeah. Yeah. I am the vintage that watched the Jetsons and
that didn't happen. We're still in tires and the same car as 1930, pretty much the same stuff, so it's hard to predict that. I think it was hard for me to see that NVIDIA would be the clear winner in this, especially when I was over there 10 years ago, tuned their headsets there at Oculus on their system. They have a LCD tuner. It was just I didn't think it was an impressive company. It's on the corner on Central down there. And now it's this huge campus. It's on Central Expressway. It's spread out. It's kind of corner down right over here. Spread out. And who would have seen that happen? It's hard to see that. I know they didn't. They can claim what they want to claim, but they were making chips for gaming rigs. That's what they were making. That's what their business was. And now it's exploded. Plus their relationship with TSMC and all the high-end chip makers, as they have that foundation.
Yeah. Jack, do you have a favorite quote, mantra, family motto, verse, poem, words that help keep you inspired?
I'll tell you what I think. My mom used to tell me how special I was. I think she was just saying that. All mothers say that, right? I think so. That's what she used to say to me. And I think about that once in a while. It's like, you're special. Like, what do you mean special? I don't know what you mean. She used to say that to me. And I think that sometimes, I hear her say that and how talented I am. So I don't know. I think mothers say that to their kids.
But if you believe it, then that's good.
Yeah. So I get up at 1 o'clock in the morning. Start working at 1 a.m. Wow. So I've always kind of been like that. I come down into this place here. It's my lab, and think and play with things and try things out. I just love doing it. So early to bed, everybody to rise. You got me.
All right. Well, I know that we'll have continued conversations, but I've really enjoyed this
Great.
opportunity to hear from
Thank,
you a little bit more
yeah,
about your journey, your story, and
yeah. Thank you.
thank you. And thank you to everybody who is watching or listening to this episode. I'll be back again with another great episode in a few days. Thanks for listening or watching to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. Don't forget to leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast listening platform. And if you want to learn more, check us out at yourbrandamplified.com.